BitLocker drive encryption lets you encrypt entire hard disks and disk volumes. It can help protect both 32-bit and 64-bit computers that are running Windows 10. It helps to ensure that data is accessible only if the boot components of the computer have not been compromised, and if the disk is still installed in the original computer. It offers you the option of requiring users to enter a password to unlock the drive when they want to use the drive. But it also provides the option of requiring multi-factor authentication. For your convenience, you can also manage BitLocker through group policy. There are a number of considerations before you implement BitLocker. There are requirements for hardware and software, including whether your computer has a Trusted Platform Module or TPM chip and its version, the UEFI and BIOS configuration, any additional firmware requirements, and the size of the drive, and so on. You can check if your computer has a TPM by running the tpm.msc management console snap-in. If your computer doesn't have a TPM, you can still use BitLocker, but you may need to configure additional options through group policy. Only administrators can manage fixed data drives, but standard users can manage removable data drives. In an enterprise computer, one way to manage BitLocker is to use the Manage-Bde.exe command line tool. You can also use Windows Management Instrumentation and Windows PowerShell scripts. There are a number of reasons why BitLocker might start in recovery mode, including that someone has disabled the TPM, or has made changes to the TPM firmware, or has made changes to the master boot record on the computer. You must consider how to manage your recovery keys. These keys let you access a computer in the event that BitLocker doesn't permit access to the computer. There are many ways to store these keys for fixed drives, including saving them to a folder, or your Microsoft account online, or printing them, or storing them on multiple USB drives. There are 5 authentication methods for protecting encrypted data using BitLocker, consisting of various combinations of a TPM, a startup pin, and startup keys. TPM plus startup pin plus startup key is the most secure, but it requires 3 authentication tasks. The encryption key is stored on the TPM chip, but an administrator needs to type a pin and insert the startup key, which is usually available on a USB drive. TPM and startup key. The encryption key is stored on the TPM chip. In addition to this, the administrator must insert a USB flash drive that contains a startup key. TPM and startup pin. In this scenario, the encryption key is stored on the TPM chip, and an administrator needs to enter a pin. With a startup key only, an administrator must insert a USB flash drive with a startup key on the drive. The computer doesn't need to have a TPM chip. The BIOS needs to support access to the USB flash drive prior to the operating system loading. With a TPM only, the encryption key is stored on the TPM chip and no administrator sign-in is required. TPM requires that the boot environment has not been modified or compromised. Standard users can secure removable devices using BitLocker to go. This provides for whole drive encryption using any file system. When you enable BitLocker to go encryption, you can encrypt used disk space only, or you can encrypt the entire drive. Note that BitLocker to go is available on Windows 10 Pro, Enterprise and Education editions. If a user can't remember the password that they need to access a BitLocker encrypted drive, then you'll need to recover the drive. When you encrypt a device with BitLocker using a Microsoft account, you can specify that BitLocker will save the recovery key to OneDrive. To recover, use the following procedure. Open a web browser, navigate to the onedrive.live.com/recovery key folder, sign in using the user's Microsoft account, and then access the recovery keys. Although you can manage BitLocker using the user interface, you can also use the Manage-Bde command line tool in Windows PowerShell or at a command prompt. There are several parameters you can use, including status. Use this parameter to provide information about the attached drives, including their BitLocker status, size, BitLocker version, key protector, lock status, and so on. Use the on parameter to encrypt a drive and turn on BitLocker. It's used with a drive letter such as C or D. Use the off parameter to decrypt and turn off BitLocker for a drive. Pause and resume allow you to pause and resume encryption of a drive. Lock and unlock. Use these with a drive letter to lock and unlock the drive. Change PIN allows you to change the PIN for a BitLocker protected drive. Recovery password. Use this parameter to add a numerical password protector. Recovery key, and use this parameter to add an external key protector for recovery purposes. Finally, use password to add a password key protector. You can use a startup key, which is stored on a USB flash drive with or without a TPM. The USB flash drive must be inserted every time the computer starts. The USB flash drive needs to be formatted by using NTFS, FAT or FAT32 file systems. In the demonstration, I'll show you how to enable BitLocker to go. Okay, so I have a USB drive inserted in my computer here. You can actually see I've got several removable storage devices. In addition to the USB key here, I've also got an SDHC card, which you can see with the padlock symbol is currently unlocked and accessible, and is assigned a drive letter of O. The first thing to do probably is to check whether I've got a TPM on this computer, and I do that by opening up the TPM snap-in. Open up Management Console and add the TPM snap-in to it. You can see here that it's telling me that there is a TPM and it's ready for use, although this TPM firmware needs to be updated because there's a security issue with it. So that's something I would want to resolve. So to enable BitLocker to go, right-click the appropriate drive and choose Turn BitLocker On. I'm going to use a password to unlock the drive. And now I can choose where I want to back up my recovery key. So I can choose to save to a cloud domain account, save to a file, or print it. I will save to a cloud domain account and then click Next. Now I can specify how much I want to encrypt. This is a blank drive, so it's not really going to make any difference in this instance. But if you had a drive that contained a lot of information already, then you could encrypt use disk space only, which is faster and best for new PCs and drives, or encrypt the entire drive, which is slower but best for PCs and drives already in use. So I would go for probably this option. I can use a compatible mode for drives that are going to be moved between this device and other devices that also support BitLocker, or a new encryption mode, which is going to provide for a higher level of encryption, a higher standard of encryption, but may create compatibility issues if I'm moving the device between this version of Windows and an earlier version of Windows. So for now I'm going to choose compatibility mode. It's important, I think, for removable drives that compatibility is a key factor, otherwise why remove it? When I'm ready, I'm going to click Start Encrypting. Now, it won't take terribly long because it's empty. You'll notice now it says it's done, and you'll also see that there's a padlock symbol and that the drive is open at the moment because we've entered the password. If I remove the drive and reinsert it, I'll be prompted to unlock the drive. I can also manage BitLocker for this particular device. Let's take a look at those options. So it switches to the BitLocker drive encryption node in control panel, and it's highlighted the various drives. I've got my USB-E and my data O. BitLocker is on both of those removable devices, and BitLocker is not currently enabled on my fixed disk. You can see here I can back up the recovery key, change the password, remove the password, add a smart card if I have one, turn on auto unlock. Now that's a very useful feature. I use that a lot. For the most part, my removable devices stay inserted in my laptop. I don't tend to move them very often to other devices, but I like the idea that if I do take them out and drop them somewhere, that my data is protected. So that's why I enable BitLocker. But I want the convenience whenever I insert a device for it to auto unlock, so I don't get prompted for the password repeatedly. So that's quite handy. In the demonstration, you saw how to enable BitLocker to go.